I've had several twists and turns along my path. I actually was being conditioned for music when I was a kid.
What did you learn about leadership early on in your journey, and what can you share with the audience?
So I stopped going to that too. And of course, my parents were not thrilled about me stopping college. They were like, what are you doing?
I love your energy. You've got this energy that's very contagious. So I can see, when you say you're a speaker and coach, I can definitely see that in you.
COVID happened and everything shut down. I didn't work for like 2 months. That you can't stand it when the tornado leadership comes in.
That's
But you
right.
were literally being the tornado.
Now, you seem very passionate about speaking. What advice would you provide younger leaders on improving their public speaking? Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of the RK Leadership Podcast, where we empower tomorrow's leaders through sharing of knowledge, experience, and inspiring stories. I'm your host, Rob Cameronpour, and my special guest today is Claudia Wyatt. She's a coach, speaker, and writer, and she's the founder of Claudia Wyatt Coaching, and she's also spent 21 years in the salon and spa industry in executive roles. So before I get Claudia to kind of introduce herself a little further, I want to take this time to thank you very much for taking time to be on my show today. And I look forward to speaking to you about leadership and the various aspects of it, Claudia. Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here, Rob. This is going to be an excellent conversation, and I've just been so excited. So here I am, and we're ready to rock.
Nice. Awesome. So why don't we get started with if you can walk us through your journey and what led you through to leadership, that would be great.
My journey has been very interesting. I've had several twists and turns along my path. I actually was being conditioned for music when I was a kid. So music
Oh,
and
wow.
dancing and performing. And I got all the way up to about 18 and I was auditioning for the university. And I was like, I don't want to do this. This is not what I want to do with my life. So I said, you know what? Never mind. And I bailed and decided to just table that. And I went into business. And then, yeah, that was going really well in school. And then I was like, there's something more for me. There's something more. This comes up a lot along my path. I kept feeling there's more out there. I just don't know what it is. So I stopped going to that too. And of course, my parents were not thrilled about me stopping college. They were like, what are you doing? And I decided to become an esthetician. And they're like, you're going to be a what now? Like, no one even knew what that was 20 years ago. People kept asking me to spell it. They're like, what is it that you do? Do you work in the hospital? I'm like, no. And I joined the salon and spa industry, which was one of the greatest journeys of my life. I had such a passion for working with people. And that's kind of where the core always came from for me, was people were always involved, whether it was my teams or whether it was the clients. I just loved helping people. So they got me into a training role and I just kind of went up the ranks in management. And then I transferred into another location that I was recruited for. And then I became the director. And then I became the executive director. And this is really where I got into working with teams and really helping with their development. And the personal and the professional side is where it all kind of came together for me, because there was so much doubt going on in these people. They had these great careers and they were launching into a new chapter and they didn't know where to go. They just kind of stopped and they would get stagnant and they would get bored. And I was like, there's so much more out there for you. Do you dream of more? And they would be like, well, maybe. I go, what are your dreams? Like, let's talk about this. And finally, I started realizing we got to dig into what's going on here. In order for me to break free from this mindset, you have to start believing in yourself. And then that turned into me starting my own coaching and consulting company, because I just love it so much and just working with the people. I'm like, I got to take this to the next level. So it just blew up from there.
Nice. So what was your dream at that moment, Claudia? And, what were you thinking that you wanted to become, years ahead? So like, what was your vision to where you wanted to go?
It's interesting for me because I always had big goals. And that was kind of the first thing. I was new in this industry. When it started, I didn't really know anything about it. And I was like, I'm going into it. And I was the first esthetician to graduate in the area that I was in. Like, it's a program started with me. So from there, I felt like I had this responsibility to all the other estheticians that were coming up, all the other spa professionals that were coming up. I was like, well, I have to give them all the knowledge, because like I basically was the trailblazer. I went through the mud and I didn't know anything. You have to know these things, right? These are important. So I would go into the schools and I would talk and I would speak and I would educate. And that's when I got that fire for that too. But I always had a big goal of where I thought I should be. Right? There was a certain number. I had to hit that number, and I was very driven, and all the extra things that came in along the way were just like a bonus. But once I hit that goal, now what? And I was like, well, I hit the goal. I hit the goal. I have all the things. I'm not done. I'm not done yet. So what am I going to do now? And it was interesting because, of course, when COVID happened and everything shut down, I didn't work for like 2 months. And it was the first time in my life since probably I was about 15 that I wasn't working. And so everyone was like concerned. They're like, are you okay? You're like, is something? I'm like, I'm fine. And then people started asking me if I was coaching. And I was like, well, I do that in my day job. And I was like, that's not me, but I can refer you to someone. I was literally giving business to other people because I wasn't paying any attention at all to the fact that people were resonating with me and my story and my energy and wanted to work with me. And then one day a light bulb just came on and I was like, I'm going to start a company. And boom, here I am.
Amazing. That's a great story. And I love your energy. You've got this energy that's very contagious. So I can see, when you say you're a speaker and coach, I can definitely see that in you. So Claudia, what did you learn about leadership early on in your journey? And what can you share with the audience with respect to that?
I think I learned the same thing that everybody else who has ever had a leader has learned. Don't work for a bad one. And you remember those things really well. The things that they do stick with you. And, that was kind of my turning point. I was like, if I'm going to lead, I'm not going to do all these things that all the other leaders do. I'm not bringing down the hammer on people. I'm not going to make people feel bad on a regular basis. I'm not going to make the ones who work really hard and put their passion and their heart into it. I'm not going to make them continue to do more while these other people over here continue to do less. Me as a person who was being in a position where a leader was there and that was never being addressed infuriated me. Because I was always putting my 110% into whatever I was doing. And I was watching these people over here just jack around. And I'm like, are you for real? They just get to go whenever they want and they just get to do whatever they want. But yet I'm here doing all of these things because I care. And that was kind of my deciding factor. I was like, if you're going to be in leadership, you have to lead, which means you have to address these problems that are happening. You can't let these people just do nothing. You can't do that. Either they belong on the team or they don't, but they have to contribute. And the people over here that are contributing all the time and they're putting their heart and soul into it and they're your go-to people, they need to be recognized.
That's right.
Because the only time I noticed the people who were doing all the things were being recognized was in front of someone else. When it was important to say, and this is my star employee and da-da-da. Well, you've never said that to them before. So, it's news to them that they're your star employee because you don't treat them that way. So that was kind of where I was, fairness, trust, honesty, very important to me.
So it's interesting you say that, Claudia. And, I use the same analogy where, be a leader that you've seen in the past that you didn't like the traits of that manager. I don't even like to call them leaders.
Correct.
But why is it that people still that are under somebody that's mismanaging people, they learn the same traits, but they're still applying them to their teams? Why is that happening?
I have literally been working on the specific problem for 2 years with a company because they had a leadership situation that was basically they were mirroring.
Yes.
They just said, oh, I hate it when they treat me this way and I hate it when they act like this, but I'm literally acting just like them to my team all the time. And I was like, do you see what's happening here? And they're like, no. And I'm like, you are saying you don't like all of these things, and this is not how you like to be treated, that you can't stand it when the tornado leadership comes in. But you were literally being the tornado. And it was like, it never occurred to them before. So going in and rewiring them to have emotional intelligence, to actually care about their people and catch themselves when they're in the situation where they're going back to their, what I call default setting. Like, if this isn't what you like, then why are you behaving this way? But it's been conditioned. They've seen it. Anything that you see, you start to adapt. You start to adapt to your environment. And you think, well, this is how this leader is going to become. Well, then someone like me comes in and they're like, absolutely not. This is not going to work. Your team is not supposed to be scared of you. If they're scared of you, nothing's going to happen. Nothing.
That's right. That's right. So do you think it's more built in their subconscious mind, and that's what's kind of driving them, is through their subconscious mind?
I do think it's from the subconscious, even though they know they don't like it and they know it's wrong. It's a behavioral trait now that they've adopted and they don't know how to change it. So what's easier than changing, right? Nothing. Let's just not do anything and it'll just be fine and it'll go away. That is not going to happen.
That's right. No, that's very, very important. And thanks for sharing that with us. Now, you talked about, the importance of self-care. And how important is self-care as a leader, or even in general? And what would you recommend to some of the leaders out there in terms of self-care?
You have to walk the walk and talk the talk. You can't just say I'm doing all these things and then watch your team not do them. And you're like, you need to take care of yourself. And they're looking at you going, well, you're not doing it. It's all part of it. I was literally the worst at this. I talked about it earlier today in something I wrote, in the fact that I had worked in this industry for 20 years and I had maybe taken 3 sick days in 20 years because I felt I had to be there all the time and everyone needed me and I couldn't go. Well, that's all in your mind. You have to take care of yourself, because what happens when you don't? You start to get burnout, you get cranky, you're going to fly off the handle for no reason. You're not good to be around in a situation like that. You have to take care of yourself, and it is okay. And we are finally in a situation with the way that things have changed over the last few years that people are starting to recognize that. They know I'm not okay. I shouldn't be here. Because if you're not okay, some people can fight through it. It's very possible. I'm a person who likes to work through things, and I need to step out of my head. And in order to get out of my head, I need to put my hands in something else. But I also know when I've hit my limit and I'm not okay. And in that moment, I need to go, you know what? I need a day. I need a day. I need to get my head right. I need to get some sleep. Because as leaders, we have a real hard time with sleep because we always have things spinning around in our heads, right?
Yes.
There's always something, you're in the middle of the night and you're like, oh, I forgot to do this and this needs to happen. And you're like, it's 2 a.m. You don't need to do it right now. So keeping a journal next to my bed was amazing. Before I go to bed, I write everything out. I get everything out of my head and onto the page. There is an actual psychological significance from pen to paper. So when you do that, you literally put it down.
Yes.
Very small form of self-care, but sleep is really important. But you have to take care of yourself. You will not be at your best. Your brain will not function as well. Your body will not function as well. And your body will shut down if you don't do it first and say, you know what, I need time. And it's much better to say, I need a day, than all of a sudden you have 2 months off because you have some health issue that you were ignoring.
That's right. And I think there's an expectation out there, this fictitious expectation that leaders are supposed to be, the superhuman, where they don't need to rest or they don't need to take vacation. And when the team looks at them, think, oh, my manager's taken 2 weeks off, that should be a norm, because you should be taking that 2 weeks off as well. And if your leader or manager is not allowing you to do that, there's a problem there.
Absolutely.
Everything's being dumped on you, right?
Well, and it also became this underlying stigmatism that if I call in sick, I'm going to be yelled at. I'm going to be ridiculed for it. And when I heard it so many times, when people would call in, they say, I'm not feeling well today. And I'd say, okay. And they'd be like, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you don't need to explain to me. And they were like, what? Like waiting for the blowback, right? I'm like, take care of yourself. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know if you can't be there tomorrow.
That's right.
And they were like, what? Well, I get it, because I've been there too, growing up, working all the time. When you called in, it was like, yes, it can be a problem when somebody on your team calls in because there's going to be other things to do. But you need to let that go and not be like, well, we have all these meetings and clients today. And, you know what? You're not curing world hunger today. Like you didn't put down a fire that shut down a whole world. You are one person. And if you have trained your team well, they'll pick up the ball.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. So that's a great segue to my next part, which is how do leaders empower their teams? And why is empowerment an important aspect of leadership?
It's extremely important. Again, we work better together, and you can't do it
Mhm.
all. You may want to, and you may be great at everything. However, you have to give delegation to your team. And I'm not just saying stop doing things that you don't want to do and hand it over. That's not being part of a team either, because everybody on the team has to do something they don't like doing. Okay. I've unclogged toilets before. So let me tell you, when you empower your team and you say, go for it. I know you can do it. I believe in you. You're opening a new channel, a new chapter, a new role that they may not have known they should be stepping into by giving them the opportunity to try it. If there's things that need to be done in your absence, give them a list. Hey, make sure XYZ things happen today. Make sure that this call gets made, just for a reminder, not because you don't think they can handle it, but because you just want to make sure that you're setting them up for success. And you
Yes.
need to be cheering them on. Cheer them on. Let them make decisions. Let them fail forward. It is
Mhm.
okay that they screw up and they make a mistake, because don't act like you've never made one in your life, because you have. It's happened a million times. I'm like, oh, that was me. Own up to your stuff as a leader in front of your team and be like, I did it. It was me. I screwed up. I'll fix it next time. But, just letting you know, I'm a real person, so I make mistakes too, because then that will show them, well, she made a mistake or he made a mistake. It's
That's
not.
right.
It's the repeat mistakes that we have to address as leaders. But going forward and letting them speak and listening to their ideas and what do they think and how do you think this should run? They're in the field every day. They're
Yes.
in a position that you are not. You may have been in that position, but if you were in that position 20 years ago, that position is not the same. So they
Yes.
know what it is. So you need to be paying attention to what they're saying and listen to them and empower them to take it and run with it. And let them know that you're here to bounce things off of. You're here to help and guide them, and you'll be their support. You're not just going to dump it in their lap and leave them so they're panicking. That is not how that works either.
That's
But
right.
you want to make sure that you are there for them. And if they know that, you're opening up a whole world of opportunity for everyone.
Absolutely. No, that's well said. And I think the empowerment piece is so important to create those, to create an engagement, to create that engagement and that engaging environment for your team to thrive in. So, well said there. I love this. I love how you said your mission is to empower and inspire people to believe in themselves through imagination, confidence, and self-care. Can you expand on each part a bit, and how do you plan to achieve this?
It is my mission to work on this every single day of my life. No matter who I talk to, I am doing it. It comes from when I just start having a conversation with somebody. I can
Mhm.
immediately tell if they're lacking confidence, if they don't believe that they can achieve something. This happens a lot with teams. You've got someone who maybe wants to be in a bigger role, but they're scared of it. It's because they don't believe in themselves. It's because they don't
Mhm.
believe in you. It's because their imagination doesn't get big enough. So expand on it. Let them dream and let them dream with you. There's the imagination point. Then
Mhm.
start putting action steps with it, right? And going, okay, this is how we're going to get there. And then they start to see it. And then you're going to have to work on their self-care. You're going to have to work on their mindset. You're going to have to work on their positive affirmations, their mirror work, all the things to get them to believe they can do it, because they know you can do it. They see it
That's
in
right.
you. They're like, you can do it. You're great. I had a lady I was working with a few weeks ago that was new. And I said, we're going to have some sessions together. And I want to know how you are. And I want to know, you to be able to speak freely with me. This is in a company. And she looked at me and I said, well, why are you looking at me like that? And she goes, I go, what's your issue? I said, because you got to be able to trust me here. And if we can't trust each other, then we can't communicate properly. And she's like, but you're just so powerful. And I was like, what? I go, I'm going to stop you right there. I'm a real person. Okay. Like I have real life problems. I do laundry. I don't live on a tower, with a crown and a scepter on all the time. I'm a real person and my job is to help you. So I need you to be honest with me. But it's interesting to see how they perceive you, because
Yes.
they want to be where you are, but they think, well, I'm not her. I can't be like her. I don't want you to be like me. Don't be me. You're you. You have something special in you.
Yes.
Something more amazing in you that I don't have. I have my amazingness, but you have yours. So let's find yours. And then they're kind of like, oh, like it never really occurred to them. So if you allow them to get excited and you allow them to dream and you support their dreams, you're going to see, I mean, unbelievable potential, unbelievable opportunities. And there's something in them that's going to spark. And when that spark lights, you can see it. And when it starts to get bigger and bigger, and then they start going, I am the greatest at this. Yes, I told you. See, it's amazing. And they're like, I get it now. That's my favorite thing in the whole world is when I see, I get it now. I'm like,
Yes.
I did it.
It's that aha moment.
It is.
Yes. So, speaking about that, the dreams and the imaginations and all of that, one of the questions I asked during my interviews is, I want you to give me your top 3 goals in life.
Ooh.
How important is it for people to have goals? And how big should somebody's goals be?
Well, I think on the person. Like me, I've never met a goal I didn't like. And if you tell me this is the goal, I'm going to say, I'm going to get there. I don't know how long it's going to take me to get there. I don't know what I have to do to get there, but I'm going to get there because that's me. I'm a very driven person.
Mm-hmm.
But if I took one of my goals and I gave it to a team member, they might go, holy cow, that's too much. And I would go, why? You can totally do it. And they would be like, no. But if I sit with them and I say, I want you to tell me your goals. I want you to set goals for yourself in this company, on this team, in this life. Write them down. And they write them all down. And I'm like, let's talk about them. And as we go through them, I'm not going to say your goals are crap. Like, right? I'm never going to say that. If I was setting goals for you, you may not like the goals I'm setting because you're not there yet. But if you set your own goals, if you let your team set their own goals, you let your people set their own goals, they'll start to get bigger on their own. And I will put my little 2 cents in every once in a while and I'll go, this is great. How about more? How about we go bigger? What's next? Because once they hit the goal, if there's a big goal, I've had several younger team members that have gotten, new cars and houses and gone on a trip of a lifetime. And those are kind of the top 3 in that age range.
Yes.
That's what they want. And when they get it and they come in and they're like, I did it. And I'm like, all right, what's next? And they're like, huh? I'm like, there's more than this, right? Like there's going to be more things that you're going to want to do. But I want you to start thinking bigger because clearly this was a big goal. You had to pay off debt. You had to, research because I'm always like, let's break it down. We're going to break it all down into teeny tiny little steps so you can get there. Check-in dates and times. And then when they hit it and they're like, okay, I can do this now. So when they come back the next time, they're like, I have my list. And I said, nice. Okay, let's do it. Let's see what you got. But I find that very, very helpful is if you set goals for your team, you can have an idea in your head of obviously if there's numbers involved where they're supposed to be. But why don't you let them speak first? Where do you want to be? Where do you think this is going to go? Because it's their goal. They're going to take ownership of it. And they're going to go, I'm going to get us there.
Yep, absolutely. And I think on the personal goal level, a lot of people have that self-limiting beliefs that, put a ceiling to their goals, and they're kind of afraid to think big. And I always say, look, imagine you're like 5 years old again, and the sky's the limit. You have no filters. You have that big imagination, like you were talking about.
Yes.
That's what you got to kind of go down and to that level to think that big, right? And just have that freedom to say, it's just thought that you're creating.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. I mean, think about when you were a kid, like any idea you had, you made happen.
Yes.
You didn't care. You just did it. We're going to put on a show today in the front yard, get the costumes, get the neighborhood. I need you to call all these people and tell all the neighbors the show is at 3:00. We didn't even know what we were doing, but we were going to put on a show on somebody's day.
That's it.
Yeah. Costumes and music, and it was a whole thing. It could have been the worst show of the whole world, but we were like, this is happening.
That's right. Exactly. No, I love it. Claudia, can you talk to us about your walkabout method that you talk about in I've seen it on your posts, I've seen it on your website. Can elaborate on that for us, please?
The walkabout method came from a very near and dear place in my heart. I went through a very long duration of doom and gloom, is what I like to call it. I was stuck in zombie mode. It was kind of after I had achieved all my goals, my life fell apart. I had several deaths in my family. I had toxic marriage, the whole thing. And in that time, I really lost myself. I couldn't imagine anything. I just didn't have the time or the energy or the imagination to go forward. And when I finally woke up from that, it started with a walk. And I took myself for a walk and I found myself in the park. And I was like, this is not the life that I was meant to live or who I was meant to be. And I need to go back to her and find out where that girl is, because that's the girl who was going somewhere. And I started digging into all of it. I dug into all my patterns, my people pleasing, my shiny object syndrome, why I kept repeating the same things with the people I was married to, why I had all these issues. And I really got into it well. And when I got into that and I started realizing, wow, I really make the same mistakes a lot. I really need to work on that. And, I would read something and ask myself a question and I would go, I don't do that. And I would walk away and I would just sink in and go, I do that. That is me. I need to stop doing that. So the process of my walkabout method has all of those things in it. And it ended with a trip. I had put myself in my own solitude for so long, and I love travel more than anything, that I said, you know what? Part one of breaking free from this is me going on a solo trip. And so I took this wonderful trip outside of Boston. I had planned it. I stayed in like a colonial B&B, and I had all these, exploring that I was going to do. And I will never forget the day I walked into that B&B and the lady was standing there and she was checking me in and she's like, are you by yourself? And I said, I am. And she said, are you running away from home? And I laughed and I stopped and I said, something like that. But as I carried my 3 bags of luggage upstairs because there was no elevator, that was a mistake. I realized it wasn't that I was running away. It was that I was running toward. I was running toward myself, and I had reignited my own flame to live my dreams. And this was the start of it. So my walkabout method is about exploration. It's about understanding. It's about those deep rooted things that we need to rewire in our brains, those old stories that we've been telling ourselves, those lies that we've been constantly yelling in our own ears, and saying, you know what, enough is enough. I'm not doing this anymore. And that's where the program began.
Awesome. Excellent. Now, what advice would you give people that are in that state and they feel stuck? What should they be doing?
Number one, you got to get out of it. You got to do one thing to move forward. It doesn't have to be anything huge. You can, if you're literally sitting on the couch all the time, stand up and declare, I'm not sitting down anymore. That's it. Go outside and take a walk like I did. Get out in nature. Forest bathing is so good for you. And just be present. Start meditation if you need to. Have conversations with yourself. Journaling was huge for me. Just getting all those thoughts that were running through my head out and on the page. Because when they're in there, they wreak havoc on you. But when they're not in there anymore, you're free. And that freedom is where excitement happens.
Yes.
So take one step toward whatever it is that you want to do, because you're never stuck. You just haven't found a way out yet.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, I'm going to talk about a controversial topic here to some, but again, I wanted to get your opinion. And I've got my side with this, but I wanted to get your kind of insight on it. Why do you think we segregate leadership between men and women? Shouldn't a leader be a leader at the end of the day?
Yeah, absolutely. I get that completely. I think we're putting our eggs in one basket when we can open up to a whole world of them. There's all kinds of different people and leaders that have great skills, and we should be able to work together.
That's right.
That's it. It really just comes down to, why are we saying you or you, and why don't we say us and we? And then from there, we can really make change. But if we're still worrying about who said this and who did that and why are you on this side and why, you're always going to have people going after each other. And I know for a lot of people, I'm multiracial, so I mean, I get it. You're fighting for something. You feel like you need to fight for something. As a woman,
Yes.
I'm fighting for something. I'm trying to make a stand. I'm trailblazing, whatever. And that's definitely something that still needs to happen. But if you are in an environment that is conditioned to accept and work together, as opposed to who's better at this, you're going to actually win.
That's right. Absolutely. And that's my frustration, is where they're coming up with all this DI and this segregation, but at the end of the day, it's done for the wrong reasons, right? It's done to put a perception out there that, hey, look what we're doing. Instead, where you've got good people, you've got fantastic leaders, both sexes, just call them leaders. I spoke to somebody and they said, no, Rob, like there is a difference, because you don't know the emotions that females go through. I can tell you, guys also go through that emotion. They just show it in a different way. They get angry more, they get frustrated. There's you, but as a leader, you're able to control those emotions regardless of your gender. And I've had great leaders that were females that I reported to, and they actually were able to control that emotion really well. So I don't think it's an emotional thing. It's more of an overall
I get
leadership
where you're
thing.
coming from. I feel like the reason is because so many people in the past, everything comes from the past, have been shut
Yes.
down of having the opportunity to get there. That's why there's this road of, women leaders and trying to make a name for themselves, because they've been shut down too many times.
Yes.
Get that. I totally get that. Had doors slammed in your face and we're paving that way. I do get that. And it's very important. I tend to look at people for who they are.
Yes.
I don't care if you're a man or a woman. If you're a jerk, I don't like you. That's basically how that is. If you're a bad leader, I'm not saying it's because you're a woman or it's because you're a man. It's because of you. That's what it's
Yes.
because of.
Yes.
If you're a good leader, you're a good leader and you're embraced. I have lots of friends that are coaches and mentors and speakers, and they lead in all different types of avenues. And I don't like them more or less because they're a man or a woman. But
Exactly.
I do understand where it comes from. I'm a Libra. I get both sides of everything. Like that's how that works. But I don't ever feel like I have something to prove because I'm a woman
Hmm.
or because of my race. I feel like I have something to prove for myself.
I love it. I love it. Excellent. Well said, Claudia. Now, you seem very passionate about speaking. What advice would you provide younger leaders on improving their public speaking? A lot of people have fear of, speaking in public. What are some of the steps that somebody should take to be a better speaker in in a public forum?
3, 2, 1, go is very helpful.
I love it.
Sometimes you just got to do it, right? And don't worry about what's going to happen. The reason people get afraid of things is because usually it's fear of judgment. They're afraid
Yes.
that somebody's going to tell them how horrible they were and how bad things were going to go. And I know what this is about. I totally know, because this is where my journey started with being a performer. It was before I would get on stage, where I was doing musical theater and I was singing and dancing all around. There was 3 of us and we would get together behind the stage and we would do our thing. You got to have like a pre-ritual. For me,
Yes.
I jump up and down. I got a lot of energy. It's got to come out so I can stabilize. Otherwise, I'm going to be like, ah, and everyone's going to be like, whoa. So before I do a show, before I go live, I just jump up and down and give myself a little pep talk. I'm like, yep, let's go. You got this. But
Nice.
that's my thing. You have to find your thing. Dancing, music is really good. Nervous energy, great way to get it out is either by movement or by your voice. Well, if you're backstage, you're not going to be screaming. So that's
Yeah.
not going to happen. So find something that you can do. Put on your walk-on song in your ears and move a little bit before you go. You'll get that nervous energy out and you can do your thing.
What about breathing?
Breathing is important too. Obviously, you have to, breath work is very, very good for your soul. It lets go of a lot of negative energy blocks, and it helps calm you. So if you feel like your pulse is racing, or if you feel like your breathing is getting very rapid, you need to calm that down, because you don't want to go out there and then pass out or not be able to talk because you're choking through your breath. For me, it's very interesting because of my background in music. I was a singer. I breathe a lot through my diaphragm. I'm not always breathing from my lungs because I used to have to hold things for long periods of time. And you can do a little exercise to help yourself with that by laying on your back on the floor and putting a book on your stomach and breathing it up and down. You'll see it's actually moving from your diaphragm. So you can expand a little bit longer. I can go longer in my wind when I'm speaking to you before I have to actually take a breath. See?
I can definitely sense that. It's interesting you say about the jumping part. I've seen Tony Robbins does that before, backstage before he goes on to do his talks too. So
I probably don't jump as high as he does.
yeah, he's a big dude, that's for sure. So Claudia, just within your experience and the people that you've coached and dealt with and seen in various industries, what is something common that leaders struggle with, like the young leaders, the new leaders struggle with?
Especially if they were in a role where they worked with the same team and they got promoted into a leadership role.
Yes.
They don't know what to do. They don't know what to do at all. There's certain people in their group that they already know are going to be a little bit more vocal, and they don't know how to approach them, so they ignore them, right? Because they still want to be liked by them. They still want to be friends. They were all going to happy hour together, and it was wonderful, and now they don't talk to them because they're in a new place.
Yes.
That's a very hard role to step into. And I find, because this happened to me, I was literally one of the people on my team in an assistant role, and I was kind of their go-to person when the actual person, the leader, stepped out. And the owner and I had a meeting with the entire team prior to me taking the position. And we said, listen, this is what's been going on. This is what's going to happen. And Claudia's going to take over. And they were like, great, this is good news. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. There's usually somebody that's stewing in the corner. But no, they were all happy because they knew I was already doing the job, right? They knew I was already taking care of them. And that's all they need. Put them in a round table together and let them know. This doesn't change the fact that I'm going to care about you actually more now than I cared about you before. I'm still going to take care of you. I'm still going to make sure things get done. But you need to know, because I'm in a leadership role, I will also be holding you accountable. Yes. Now, if you have peer accountability already, you're making this a lot easier for them because they know they're already going to be called out.
That's right. That's right. Excellent. That's a great point, Claudia. Now, I want to shift again and talk about the future of leadership. Where do you see the future of leadership going? And do you think we have a lot of issues and there's a lot of gaps still in leadership? And how are we going to address this as a community?
I think it's becoming better than it ever has been, because people are starting to realize there's more to people than just a number. Like, they're not robots, they're real people. And because they have also experienced it, a lot of people experienced a lot of different emotions, mental, physical health over the last few years that they never thought possible. They saw things that they never thought were possible. That changes people. And it can change them for the better, or it can change them for the worse. But people who work for you, who come in, and they are literally bleeding for your mission. They're building your dream if it's your company. Right? Yes. It's your dream that they're coming in every day and they're working for you. Yes, they're getting paid. However, if you want them to believe in you, your team, and your culture, and make a community out of it, then they need to know they're cared about. They need to know that they matter. They need to know that that they are real people who have real problems at home. You can tell people to leave it at the door. They don't do that. They don't leave it at the door. They're waiting to get to the coffee cooler to talk to everyone about what's going on with their life, or they're completely shutting down and locking themselves in their office. Those people are not okay. So you need to start paying attention to that. And don't make people work if they're not okay, because it's actually going to cost you more. Because they're going to be out longer, or they're going to tank something that really is important. The new phase of leadership is emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And we all need to have it. Not just the leaders, but the actual teams. Anybody who works in the company needs to have it because we're all in this together.
Excellent. And I think that's why, in my opinion, I've seen the mental health numbers go up in terms of, people being impacted by it. And you're seeing more of it now than ever before. And I think you do need to have good leaders to come in there and actually take care of their people and be empathetic towards, everything else that people are dealing with in life, right?
Well, we noticed this over the last year with the quiet
Yes.
quitting and the people who just said,
Yes.
screw it, I'm out. I'm not taking this crap anymore.
Yes.
People don't do that. People are not from our generation that are going to just sit there and take being hammered on all day long because they need a job. Guess what? They'll go find another one. And they don't care. They don't care what it is. If you were in my generation and you worked your way up the ladder, you're not going to stop your job to go do something that's not what you want to do. But these people don't care. They're like, you know what? Screw this. I'm out. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to sell Kool-Aid on the corner and it's going to be completely fine. And I can make $1 million doing that. So I don't need you being my boss. I don't need you telling me what to do. People can do anything. They have the ability. They have the technology. They can literally do anything. So if you actually want to keep them in your company, you need to make sure they are happy.
Yes. 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 Yes.
You're getting me fired up today, Rob. I'm telling
I
you.
love it. I love it. Like I said, I love your energy. It's very infectious. So before we end the show, I always like to go through my rapid fire questions session. So I've got a few questions for you. What is your unconventional definition of leadership?
People first. That's it.
I love that. I love that. What is the most difficult emotion to control as a leader?
Sadness.
Excellent. What is your number one advice to somebody wanting to get into a leadership role?
Research all the different avenues of leadership because it's more than just being a boss.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And Claudia, where can they find you?
I'm everywhere. My website is claudiawyatt.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook under Claudia Wyatt and the Claudia Wyatt. Awesome. Love to meet you. Please reach out.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you so much. Again, I wanted to thank you so much for being with us today. I greatly appreciate everything that you talked about. I think our audience will definitely enjoy this conversation and your knowledge and experience. And for all those who have any questions for Claudia, please put your questions in the comments below and I'll make sure that Claudia gets it, or you can reach out to her directly. Again, Claudia, thank you for your time today, and we'll hopefully see everyone on the next podcast. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.